As a nation, we've never exactly been slow to step forward and take up the challenge of the pursuit of excellence, from Alcock and Brown flying non-stop across the Atlantic and Sir Malcolm Campbell's world speed records to the speeches of Winston Churchill and Ian Botham's magnificent 366 Test match wickets. But I've been out in search of different groups of people pursuing their own forms of excellence in a way that, frankly, is unlikely ever to make the headlines. People like Digger Dixon, for whom life is a gift from God intended solely for the purpose of cultivating the perfect vegetable. And Anne Webb, who's turned her living room into a moderately sized laboratory in her efforts to breed a specimen of such grace and elegance, it'll take your breath away. And where better to start than here at this great temple to British excellence, the Albert Hall, wherein at this very moment a large body of men and a handful of women are waiting with beating hearts and slightly sweaty palms to see whether today is going to turn out to be one of the greatest days of their lives. Slap bang in the middle of the great floor of the Albert Hall stands a rather curious little hut. With the fixed, slightly apprehensive expressions of astronauts entering the shuttle, 3 men step inside the hut in the certain knowledge that they'll not be allowed out for any reason whatsoever for at least 8 hours. Believe me, this takes courage.
Sandwiches should arrive any minute, and there's the bottle of
Supplies are passed in to help them get through the day.
Sorry, Ray, you're on a diet. No, that's it. Sorry, William, you're on the diet. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie.
And a bucket is on hand for emergencies. For just one day, these 3 are the most powerful men in SW7. Omnipotent, unchallenged, merciless, their whim can bring joy or misery. They're the judges of the Barclays Bank National Brass Band Championships. And they're locked in their little cooler all day because they're not allowed to see the bands they judge, nor can they talk to anyone outside for fear this could prejudice them. This is a contest fought out between 19 of the finest amateur bands in Britain, and with the stakes so high, the honour of conquering all comers and securing the coveted trophy so important, some bands at least would stop at nothing to win. You've never seen rules of engagement like it.
Registration will be in the usual place in the band room.
With the judges safely hidden away, the band representatives gather for the fateful draw to determine the order of play.
17. Number 17.
Traditionally, the worst draw is to play first, on the grounds that by the end of the day, the judges may have forgotten your performance.
Number 1. Hold on.
And first place is drawn by the poor old London Electricity Redbridge Brass, and they won't be amused.
Paul, I've blown it. You're on first. Sorry about that.
Outside, their representative phones the bad news to the players who are anxiously waiting in a rehearsal room a few miles away.
Right, see ya. Bye.
What was the reaction?
Screams and shouts from the background.
Really?
Yes.
Performing towards the end lowers your chances too, they say, so the Hartford Motors Brass from Oxford seem pleased their draw is about right.
Number 9, lads. You'd be interested to know London Electricity Redbridge have drawn number 1.
And since London Electricity are Hartford's traditional rivals, there's delight about that as well. With the hall now nearly full of supporters, the judges are about to get down to work. Will you be able to last out the whole day without using the bucket, do you think?
Well, we'll have a little bet on
we're
that.
Just drawing straws, actually.
Yes, yes.
We're going to leave to the very last minute before we...
Trevor's got the short straw.
Thanks to the slatted front of the hut, the judges can hear the music perfectly without being able to see who's playing it. But there's another, rather more tedious hazard to contend with. Under the draconian rules of fair play here, each band must perform exactly the same piece of music. And as the hours ticked by, the piece, called Seascapes, began to lose just a little of its freshness. If all the beginnings were starting to sound the same, so too, I'm afraid, were the ends. Nobody ever said the path to excellence wasn't painful. Backstage, the next band waiting to go on must have its registration cards checked by officials from Boozy and Hawkes, who organised the contest. Several weeks ago, every player submitted a specimen signature and a passport photograph, and these are scrutinised before anyone's allowed on stage. Is it really necessary, all this?
Yes.
Why?
Because it stops lots of fiddling that used to happen years ago, that people used to twist, and bands have been banned for playing professional players years ago.
So you check every man's
So
signature?
we check every man's signature and his photograph.
So there's really no way you could slip somebody in?
No way, no.
Not through your eyes, anyway?
Not through my eyes, no.
As they wait to go on, just a little of the strain is beginning to show. You look a little bit pale, Barry.
Well, it's always difficult. This is the worst time, really, waiting to go on. And the band that played before, I think, played very well. So it puts you a bit more on edge, maybe, than you would normally be. Come on now.
Okay, good luck. The conductor, Barry Pope, is more normally a psychiatric social worker, and amongst the Hartford Motors players he's welded into almost perfect harmony are... two managing directors, 2 scientists, 3 students, 1 secretary, 1 blood group serologist, 1 plastic mouldings operative, and an electricity board meter reader. Afterwards, they seemed a little overheated, but quite relieved.
A bit more colour in your face now.
Yeah, it's the blood pressure.
I hope you're buying as well.
As the long morning dragged itself with no break for lunch into the long afternoon, some of us at least were beginning to flag. Along with the 5,000 or so other Stoics here in the audience, I'm now listening to this tune for the 16th, or is it the 17th time? It's not that I don't like it, it's a nice tune, and reflecting as it does the changing moods of the sea, it's technically very difficult, and I think the standard here is amazingly high. It's just that each band is currently taking about 15 minutes to get through it, which means that so far I've been reflecting on the nature of the changing moods of the sea for a solid 4¼ hours, and it's not over yet. I I noticed too that the more active amongst the audience were slipping unobtrusively into the bars that were conveniently open most of the time.
Why are you in the bar? Shouldn't you be listening?
We've just heard 4 incredible performances and we couldn't take any more.
I know how you feel.
At last, all 19 bands had done their stuff. The judges emerged a little stiffly from their 8 hours of incarceration. Amazingly, the bucket wasn't required, incidentally. And when the news broke of their decision to choose a Midland band, the Desford Colliery Doughty as winner for the 2nd year running, well, all hell broke loose.
I've lost my voice with all the screaming. Just next year. Wonderful. Next year we get the hat trick. Just wonderful.
If ever there was a moment in their lives to cherish, then this was surely it.
Absolutely brilliant.
Well done.
I can't believe it.
The victors then set off to retrieve their instruments and go back on stage to play Seascapes yet again as a lap of honour. We'd be hearing it for the 20th time that day. But I, for one, suddenly remembered a previous and rather urgent engagement elsewhere.